Hey guys, welcome back to another Six Sages Gaming set review. I'm joined by Jamie and we're going to be talking about the win cards from Opus 3. So Jamie, thank you again for joining me. I hope you're looking forward to talking about some win cards.
Yep, I'm looking forward to talking about my favorite element and probably one of the most improved elements in Opus 3. So I'm excited. My favorite deck is in these colors.
Yeah, and it certainly is only getting better. But we are going to kick it off, and some of these wind spoilers are really just going to blow us away. One that doesn't, unfortunately, is Izana. So it's a Type 0 card. You get to find a Chocobo with it. The cute thing I will say about this card is that it lets you find Black Chocobo, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But unless you're having some themed built deck, I just don't see this card seeing any play. Maybe down the road, who knows? But it's, anytime we have a tutor card, you keep an eye on it. But for now, it's going to get a pass for me.
Should be an EX burst, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd like it better if it was.
I think if it was, it might be playable in some kind of weird, unblockable or Shenhazi list or something, but nah, it's probably not great.
Won't waste any more time on that. And now getting into our first legendary, which we had both agreed doesn't really feel like a legendary, but at least it's better than the other one. We have Aerith. And we are still waiting to see if that first part is even relevant. If you have a Category 7 forward, the cost is reduced by 1. I don't think you're ever going to have a Final Fantasy 7 forward in the type of deck this wants to go in, namely the very obvious Water Wind already. But this card got severely, I should say balanced, but I'm going to say nerfed from the chapter version because it used to stop all effects, and now it's just forwards you control cannot be chosen by your opponent's backup abilities. So, Jamie, how good do you think this card is going to be going into this next meta?
I think if you can reliably get Final Fantasy 7 forwards, then you should play the card because it's still good. There are loads of cards there are loads of backups that want to target your forwards, but for 3 mana, it feels a little bit too much. There's the Jilna Bart in Iced for the Opus 2 one that it saw some play occasionally, and I think this is what this will be if it was a 2-drop. But unless you can make it a 2-drop reliably, I probably wouldn't play it. And the other one is probably strictly better, and that doesn't even see that much play anymore anyway. So
yeah,
it's a shame it's a legendary.
It is, and I think, and we keep having this conversation. And before we start recording, we talked about a bit, but there's quite a few cards in Wind in the set that if we had a sideboard, which I don't think we ever will in Final Fantasy, this would automatically be a sideboard card because it is so strong against certain red-based decks. It's very strong against certain earth-based decks if they're maxing out on, say, Mustadio and Raban. But outside of that, it really does fall flat in a lot of matchups. I'm probably going to sneak one in and just hope I draw it timely if I'm going against those decks, because I think where it's good, it's really good. It depends on how the meta falls out if this card is really going to see a ton of play. Again, we are not saying it's a bad card by any means. The effect is very, very strong. It's just we could be in a position where we don't see a lot of backups that are targeting your cards, which just would then make this card completely irrelevant. The biggest one that comes to my mind is Red Mage, and maybe because the other Matt just loves crushing my soul with it. But I love the idea of being able to turn off Red Mage. So I'm a bit biased. But again, I think if we had sideboards, or depending on how the meta goes, I can certainly see this card not seeing any play.
Yeah, I really hope there's sideboards though one day, because this would definitely go in it, as you said.
Yeah, automatic include. Up next we have 8, which we talked about a bit already. It was in the starter decks, so we're seeing it here again. It's really just a ramp card because you can untap 3 Job Class 0 cadet characters, so backups as well. And we got a few more cadet backups, which we talked about in the fire video. So I think this card only got better. The effect is also good. It's a 3-drop 7k. It basically, in the Type 0 deck, it wants to be the starter Pain, so you can just untap stuff, play something again. Notably here, though, you can also just attack out with, say, 3 forwards, activate them. I think this card, it was fine before, and now it's going to be, I just can't imagine playing a cadet deck without it.
Yeah, it was... I think it was probably the worst cadet, like the worst playable cadet, because there's some cadets that are just unplayable.
Right.
In the sense that you do include it, definitely, but it's never great to play. It's just that there aren't enough cadet backups, so it doesn't feel like a ramp card. But at the moment, I predict at least there's going to be a lot of ice tempo decks going around where this card will really shine there. You can attack with everything, untap everything, or they can waste their Doran freeze effects on you, and you just untap it the next turn. So it's definitely an include. It's just not flashy. Like most of the other cadets, they do really cool things, and they're really powerful at what they do. This is just a kind of generic. In the cadet deck, it's often going to be a 9k. So a 3 mana, potentially 2 mana 9k. That's great. Let's play it for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about it, really. And the special is quite good.
And you make a good point, too,
consider.
With Ice, because the new Dull Shiva card, I think is just absurd, and it's going to see some play. And again, Ice really does want to capitalize on those dull and free space effects, and this can just entirely negate that. So
yeah, it just says no.
It's certainly the more utility role, but again, it's a good card for cadets, so I would expect this to see play. Continue to see play, I should say. Up next, we have Dancer. I really want to love this card. 1-drop 3k, deal 1,000 damage to all forwards. So, again, and we got Barbarisha, another copy of her, more importantly, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But obviously, this combos very well with the Opus II version, where you deal damage to all your opponent's forwards except for 1,000. You then play this, finish them off. It's a potential board wipe. It just takes a lot to pull it off, and you're playing a otherwise very just a terrible card. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it in any way, shape, or form. This is just a terrible card otherwise. So if someone wants to get really cheeky, be my guest. But card's gonna get a pass from me for this.
Yeah, when I first read this, I thought it was a backup, and I was like pretty happy with it. But it's not a backup, so it's not good. It's really, really bad. Yeah. It's just don't play this card ever, even in sealed. I'd say. But there are much easier ways to wipe the board than this.
I don't know. I think it's cheeky, and someone's gonna try to make it happen. So if you do,
kudos. Good luck to you.
Up next, then we have Ranger, 3-drop 7k, cannot be chosen by your opponent's abilities. Perhaps unpopular opinion. I forgot we didn't actually talk about this one, but I actually really do like this card for the standard unit deck. The 3-drop slot in standard units, the Windwater one, and they're listed on Mognet if you haven't seen them. The 3-drop slot is just terrible for the deck. It's either 2 or 4, it feels like a lot of the time. And just being able to turn off, not being able to interact with your opponent's abilities is certainly going to be strong as well. Yes, they can still use summons, I get that, but it's just a way that you very easily have a 9 or 10k body, then that forces your opponent to have these very specific answers to it. So in that very one instance only type of deck, I could see this seeing play, but outside of that, it's probably just terrible.
I like it too. I think it's kind of similar to 8 in a sense. It's not particularly flashy, but it does what it does, and you're quite happy with what it does. It definitely will see play in a standard unit deck if that's a thing. It wouldn't surprise me if I saw this as a one-of in many win decks. It's just, the ability. It depends how many abilities there are that go around. But in Opus 2 there were a lot. So having this that's potentially an 8k, it's a very good defensive card.
Right.
So yeah, it gets thumbs up from me.
Here we are now with Black Chocobo, which was a card that a lot of people were afraid of based on the chapter version, so it didn't change, and we do now have Azana that can tutor for it, so you can make a very easy unblockable party. But again, as we've seen previously, the unblockable theme deck has just kind of fallen flat. Now, Jamie, do you think this card is going to help push that into a playable deck, or do you think that this is still a trap from Opus 2 and is not gaining any new traction?
I think if it was a 4K, it would be really good. But there's so many ways to do a 3K or take away 3K power that it's just going to die straight away. And forming a party to attack is not great, because even if they can't block it, right, then they're just doing you're doing 1 point of damage. And in the deck where this is played, you don't have the resources to have lots and lots of forwards. So you might be doing 2 points of damage a turn. And it's not even a common unit, so it doesn't read very well. and it's the sort of card you'd have to actually actively test to work out how good it is. But I think the fact that it's a 3K powered forward, it's going to be its downfall, because there's in the meta, there's too many things that deal 3K.
Yep.
Also, it's purple. It's not black. It kind of annoys me. Well, that's kind of besides the point.
True. And again, I also do wish. So in my let's try to make this card better kind of world, I wish it had the mime effect where it could change its elements, so it could combo with or party attack with anything. Because there's a lot stronger when you deal damage to your opponent, do X effects outside of Wind. The only thing that Wind really has is Edge. I think it's Edge Van, and there's one other card that will activate your backups, which, sure, you can then like do multiple Zemus activations in a turn, but there's not a lot of backups that you want to say, I want to use this as much as possible and get multiple effects out of it in a turn, where you're just, you know, Shemahazi could just get this done and make your entire forward team unblockable if that's where you're going anyway. So I don't think that there's a strong enough reasons to want to hit your opponent and win, other than saying, cool, I can get in a point of damage, and now I lost 2 blockers. So you need to really be far ahead for this card to hopefully get the last points of damage in.
Yeah, and the decks that this go in, they don't get far ahead. They just like face Hunter. They're just going to try and attack you for damage, and they're going to lose resources, and then by turn 7 they've lost the game if they haven't won. So yep. Yeah, you're right in that sense. I don't see it being that good.
All right, moving on to Thief, which this is always going to be a soft spot on my heart.
Mine too.
Mill was good for exactly like a week in Opus 1. And maybe just because I'm a terrible person and I forced myself to win off Mill and not by just, you know, killing them when I probably could have. Thief does give the opportunity to mill the top 2 cards. So in the wind-based decks, especially in Wind Water, is a type of deck that wants to tutor a lot or burn through its cards a lot. So in a mirror match, if you will, sometimes milling those 2 extra cards can be great. You know, that's why you run the heroic Riku, so you can mill out your opponent as kind of a plan B. But unless you're building a very dedicated mill-focused deck, you're running all the... they're just bad. You're running all the bad Thief cards from Opus 1. Maybe you have this as well. You have to bring back Sid Highwind. You know, I don't think it's good enough to last in where we are currently in the meta. But if that deck is somehow going to be relevant, it'll probably be in thanks to this card, because I did play the mill deck a lot, and it really just needed like one more solid mill effect, I felt, most of the time. But you know, I just don't think this is going to see play as much as I would want it to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a player that constantly thinks about the amount of cards in my opponent's deck and mine, and I've been criticized before for just picking up my opponent's deck to count it. But if this didn't break itself, it would definitely be playable.
Oh god!
But it just
that'd be insane, though.
It would. That'd be what Riku is, right? Except Riku's still better.
Right. Well, the difference between 2 and 1 is also huge. Like, even if it was... Like, I would have no problem paying an extra win to be able to mill 2 cards instead of 1 a turn. Just 100% sign me up for that.
I just think that mill is better when it's not your overall game plan.
Right. Because
you're just going to get killed before you can do it. It's going to take at least 6-7 turns to mill someone out fully. You're going to die before that. So I don't think there's going to be just a mill deck that can be good for a long time.
Yep.
But I think sometimes cards like this will sneak into decks and can provide you a win condition. But it's better if they're repeatable.
Right.
So it's on the right tracks, but I don't think it will be played.
Then we have Zidane, which... So we had this discussion, and we'll just make a comment on it here. The biggest barrier to this card is Light Zidane, but let's just take a moment and look at the card itself. A lot of people compare this to Thought Knot Seer in Magic, even though the power ratio doesn't match up properly. But in Final Fantasy, you know, we're very focused on your opponent gets to discard a card, so they always have the choice. This is the first time that you're not only gaining the information from seeing your opponent's entire hand, which may be however many cards at that point in time, but you get to take their best card from it. And that is just a terrifyingly powerful effect. The second part is if they have 2 cards or less in hand, it can become a 7k, probably an 8k since you're in wind. And that's certainly good. It's just with how strong the wind water package is, it just in itself, I think the only chance that this deck or this card is really going to have is going to be in a wind ice deck, which I don't even know how good that is offhand. That's something that's yet to be seen, but I want this card to be good so bad, and I think it has. There's going to be a home for it somewhere. I'm just not sure where that's going to be yet.
I think the ability to look at your opponent's hand and choose one of the cards it sounds way better than it actually will be. Because in Magic, it was amazing, but in this game, you dump most of the cards out of your hand a lot, and good players they can kind of guess what's in the opponent's hand just by seeing how many cards are in it and like what they can play. So if they've only got 2 cards in hand, you know that next turn they can only play certain cards from their deck, right? So I don't think it's that big a deal to be able to look at your opponent's hand, because often you have a good idea what's going on, especially if it's a meta deck.
True.
But there will be occasions when you get rid of a Shantoto, something that you actually can't play around, and it'll be amazing. But I think it's not going to happen enough where the card you take out wins you the game that it's worth playing over Light Zidane. That's even if you consider that this could be a 7k. Just as it stands, it's a 3k.
Right.
And we've already spoken about 3k just not being good enough in general. So if it wasn't called Zidane, would it be played? Maybe, but I still don't think too much. I think it looks really good, and there are definitely some decks like there's a wind ice discard deck that will exist one day, and this card goes in it.
Yep. But
probably so does the starter Zidane at the same time, because that card's just really good as well.
It is, but I have to go back and look and see what other, because most of the 9 cards have been wind, water, and fire, right? I believe, or no, just fire and water.
Just fire and water, yeah.
And this is only wind 1, so and I think that also plays into the role of it. But yeah, again, wind ice probably, and I just really want to see this card play just because. But we'll see past that. So this gets a to be determined then. 7.
Get your foils now for future sets.
Exactly. So if you want a card to spec on, there you go. Get your foils while you can, because it'll be the cheapest, obviously, when the set comes out. Up next, then we have 7, which we've talked about a lot. Snakebite is still really good. A lot of people are joking or serious. I don't know which yet, and we're going to test it. But everyone keeps saying Golbez Cadets, the deck. So it's probably, what did I just say? 7, Sync, and Sice, and then you're playing Scar for the Earth card. I think those are the 4 elements. There might be something there. Who knows? I think Snakebite is still just a very strong effect. I'm sure this card is going to see play. It's obviously insane in the Type 0 Cadet deck. I don't really have a lot that I want to spend time on this card with. Good card's good.
It's sort of like Opus 1 Zidane in the sense that it's kind of unblockable because it counts itself, right? So you can just play it. It's a 4k that's going to be hard to block. And the special, it's annoying. Your opponent sort of has to kill this card even though it's just a 4k.
Yep.
But once I've said again about the 3 to 4k difference, that is huge in this game. The difference, like the fact that 7 is a 4k, makes him over the top. And I think
her.
Yeah. Well,
someone's gonna kill you on the comments. I'm just saying.
I can see her being played in decks that don't have cadets, but I think if you're playing cadets and you're running wind, play this card, or you're insane. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah, good card's good. Played in cadets. Moving on.
Sometimes play it without.
Sky Pirate Replica. Ooh, mannequin. Attack, choose a backup you control, and activate it. I'm just going to say it again, and I really don't mean to beat a dead horse, but unblockable is a trap. That's all I'm going to say about this card. I just don't see it. Maybe we're at a point where we have enough cards to make Zemus playable, and you're fine to do it, but I have nothing good to say about this card.
Yeah, there's not enough backups that are worth untapping, really. The main backup that I would ever think about untapping would be Edward from Opus 2, but now there's Shelk, which does the same thing, but when you do damage, it untaps anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't... It's the sort of card that might be good one day, but currently not very.
Right. So keep on to your backups. King Tycoon, which that beautiful artwork. I know there's a lot of people who hate this specific artist, but I do really like the watercolor style. And it is an EX burst. That's worth noting. When there's a field, you search for a Ferris or a Lena and add it to your hand. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I forgot to make my notes when I was putting this together. Ferris and Lena already go together, so and they're fire and water. So I don't see how you're making a 3-color deck out of this, but I
think it's more about having the option. Wind Water's a deck, always has been, and Wind Fire is also probably the second best wind deck that we've had since before Opus 3. So maybe that's just sort of thinking, in whatever deck you choose to run, this card can work. But I mean, yeah, I guess you wouldn't play Faris unless you're playing Lena.
Right.
Unless you're playing water. So this has to go, yeah, because it only works with water. It's a weird card. Maybe there'll be more. Maybe there'll be more support for 3-color decks one day. It's cool though. I do like the art too. It's pretty retro.
Another thing worth note as well, of course, as we get more Ferris and Lena cards, obviously it's a tutor that goes up in playability. But yeah, I just think it's weird because Ferris really wants to be in a water deck anyways, and Lena's probably good enough by itself, but yeah, it's just interesting how it was. And again, everyone knows that I'm not the hugest Final Fantasy fan, so I'm sure my buddy Kyle is just screaming in the background as he's watching this and saying why it's important lore-wise and all that. But at the end of the day, we're playing a trading card game, so we have to look at it from the what deck is this going into, how playable is it going to be, how good is it in actuality. So maybe we'll see a Wind Ferris. Like, I don't know a lot about Ferris anyway, so maybe we'll see something that makes these named cards line up a bit better in future sets.
Yeah.
I'm gonna butcher this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Tuscanoa, I believe. Which
I think that was quite good.
Yay, ninja theme. Yay. And combos with edge. So again, we have to take a step back and also remember that there is a Lord effect, or again, buff all your ninjas, both in edge, the 4-drop version, and then we had in the fire review, we had I'm going to blank on his name, but he was a Fire Ninja 5-drop that has the ability to threaten pay 1 red and 1 colorless, where you can buff all your ninjas as well. That said, it's a 2K, so I think there's...
His name was Gecko.
What's that?
Gecko was the ninja, the
right.
fire ninja.
I think there's a really cute, because I love building tribal-based decks or decks on a thing. I think there's a really cute Fire Wind Ninja deck. I don't think it's good, but I might throw it together just because for maybe a video or just to play for one weekend just to do it. But you have to play this in the Ninja deck, so obviously outside of that, I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. It's otherwise a worse 1-drop Yuffie from Opus 1 if you're not playing it in a Ninja deck. So it's just a miss for me on that in that regard.
Yeah, we've already said that Unblockables is a bit of a trap anyway. So if a Ninja deck is good, this card is probably good in it. It's really good in Sealed and Draft, so if you're ever playing that,
yeah,
pick it highly, because people seem to miss on it for some reason. But in Constructed, I don't. It's lower than a 3K in power, therefore it's not going to survive very long. And unless it's got some kind of enter the battlefield effect that's really, really good, and you don't care about the body, you can't really play things that are that low.
Yeah, again, cute that it can give itself haste, which can give you maybe that surprise point of damage you need, but otherwise I'm not gonna be hype on that one. Moving on, we have Diablos, which again, just a solid card. Wind has been lacking removal. Obviously really good in cadets where you're kind of flooding the board anyways. It's an EX burst. Just all around a very solid card that goes in probably quite a few win decks. if not the majority of them, because Wind just sets you up for this kind of ramp tempo acceleration accounts all characters, so it's very easy to deal a lot of damage with a Wind focused deck with this card.
Yeah, it's really good. Hitting it off an EX burst always feels nice because you get to untap 3 backups if you got cadets.
Yep.
It was seeing play in Water Wind value at the end of Opus 2 as a one-of in almost every deck. I think the card is really good, and if there wasn't other really good summons in the decks that Winds are playing at the moment, then it would automatically be a 3-of, but it's probably only a 3-of in cadets. But it wouldn't surprise me at all seeing it as a 1 or 2-of in any Wind deck ever. It's just solid.
Absolutely. Then we have Deuce, which so Concerto is certainly a strong effect. I think we can all agree on that in the cadet based deck. But again, going back to 8 with having these class cadet characters that you can activate, so it just helps. This is just one of those cards that play into that role. The 2,000 damage to attacking forward has also been relevant quite a few times. The early Wind decks were playing it in that Opus 2.5 meta, if you will, because what's really cheeky that you could do is play a Pain for free, draw a card. They'd go to attack with the 9K. You could block with Pain and then finish it off with Deuce. But I think this is mostly going to see play in the cadet deck for obvious reasons, and then outside of that, probably not as much. I think Wind has too many backups where we don't see this any longer. Maybe as a one-of just because, but I don't think we're going to see this too much in non-cadet focused decks.
Yeah, I like it. It's a class 0 cadet as well, so it has that synergy with Sice and things like that, and 8. So it's good. It definitely goes in the class 0 cadets because that deck doesn't have enough backups to say class 0 cadet. But you're right. It doesn't go in anything else. And it's not meant to. It's not for that.
Right. Then we have Dorgan, which is a very surprising card that when it was first spoiled, a lot of us were very excited for it. Kind of forgot. I honestly almost forgot this card existed because it's been so long. But it's a really interesting card, and again, Wind didn't have a lot of removal or when this isn't a destruction based effect because it removes it from the game and never goes to the break zone. But I think this card is going to. I'm not sold that it's going to be a 3-of or anything like that, but it's certainly a very nice 1 to 2-of. And Jamie, I'm going to give this one to you to kind of elaborate on since I know how much you love it.
It's going in every Wind deck as a 1-of at least. It just will do because removal is good at 3 mana. It's at worst, it is it's a removal spell that you have to show your opponent and wait a turn for that they can kill. But that's at worst. At best, it's you play it before they have their threats on the board, and they no longer can play their threats. And you might even be able to get a point of damage in with it. Or you can block something and kill something else. So it's a shame it doesn't have an S ability or something, but that would make it over the top completely, which
right.
is the only reason why it's not 3-of. But if you can play this preemptively, that's definitely where you want to be with this card, because then it is so hard to deal with. Your opponent is forced to kill this card before they can play their threats, and if they're killing a 3-mana 6K just as that, which, by the way, in response to them killing it, you can just kill one of their things anyway.
Right.
They're just so far behind. So it's really, really good. The only thing I don't like about it is the art is really weird. And all that wispy stuff on the side just looks strange. Looks like it's not finished to me.
Right.
I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, that just goes back to the art style.
Okay.
With Amano. Gordon? Yeah, Gordon had the same thing from Opus 1, and the foiling looked really, really weird. I'm sure this card's going to look very weird in foil as well.
Oh, I've just opened one in foil. It was bizarre. I thought there was a scratch on it.
Right. And the last thing I'll say about this card, too, is I really do like the idea of getting to play Pain into this, because then you're not only going to play something you can attack with and not care about, this can just sit back. And you did raise a very good point as well. There's going to be a lot of turns where the best use of this card is going to be able to block something, prevent that point of damage, and then just remove their other attacker from the game. And that, I think having that option always up is going to put your opponent in a very difficult position to try to advance their board state and try to not lose their best card in their deck. Yeah,
and that's such a tempo swing as well, because Wind often has lots of forwards out. So if you can essentially dole one of their forwards, kill another, then you've got your whole board the next turn that you can do things with, and you can leverage that advantage. So yeah, he's going in every win deck. It's just which win deck does he benefit the most from being in? But he's not a, sort of a synergy card, so he's probably just good in everything when he's played, and that's it. Like he might be best in a lightning deck when you can give him haste occasionally, but I don't see him going in the cadet deck that much because they're really strapped for what they can play anyway.
Yep, it's gonna be very interesting to see where this card goes. Going on to probably another card, and that's I'm assuming going to go in every win deck just because it's very difficult to deal with, and obviously it's in the cadet deck, so we won't really stress on that too much. But we have the 4-drop Trey, which is an 8K, again 9K assuming wind, and it's just really annoying to try to interact with this card. So if it's active, it can't be chosen by abilities. If it's dulled, it can't be chosen by summons. So your opponent has to think about what options they have to remove this card and what windows are available. And again, it's just a 9K, so chances are it can just freely attack every single turn and not have to worry too much about what it's either trading with or if they're going to have another effect. So another solid card that's probably going to see a good amount of play in wind.
This card is sort of like Opus 1 Guy, in the sense that he's a great defensive unit if you want him to be defensive, but he's also a great attacking unit as well, because often if you're on the defensive, it's summons that you want to be using to stop your opponent from doing something, or you can preemptively dole them, but you can't do that with this card because he won't be able to be dealt with by abilities. And when he's tapped, your opponent can't kill him with summons, so he's just really good because you can choose how you want him to be used in that sense. And there's so many ice cards now that will try and dole him, and he says no. So I've lost to him quite a few times playing Ice Lightning in testing. I really like him, and I hope he sees some play outside of cadets. And I think it just depends on what kind of decks they're going about for wind. But he's certainly a card that everyone will think about when building up wind decks. Absolutely.
Then Barts. Another card that I just really want to like. You know what? I'm not even gonna say anything. I don't have a lot of good things to say about him. It's very easy to get him to the point where he has haste and first strike. It's very difficult to get him to that next point. So I think what you have to ask yourself is how good is a 3-drop with haste and first strike that is hopefully going to be a 7K. And the cheeky thing here again, he gains those jobs. So if you have standard unit, back to the same point that standard units really lack in the 3-drop slot that they have. So maybe this sees some plays like a 1 to 2 of. So again, there's no S effect. You have to see this maybe in your mid to late game once you have a board already set up. But outside of that, I just can't see this card getting a lot of love, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's really situational. The way I see it is if you have 5 forwards out, you're either winning or you're about to lose because you've overextended and you're about to get board wiped.
Also, very true.
Yeah, so like, and is a 9K that can attack twice worth having that risk of having 5 forwards out? I don't even think so.
Well, he will have the first strike then too, so you have to consider that. Again, assuming you have Maria, maybe. So let's take it a step away from the standard units because obviously they get all that buffs as well. In what you're hoping for is a 10K with first strike and brave that's going to attack twice. So it's really strong when you get to that point. Chaos, a card that we'll talk about in the dark set review. I know a lot of people are going to try and make that work. Obviously, it's just a natural 10K, so don't have to put as much work into it. But I think that if you can make that effect work, it is going to win you the game very, very fast. But again, to your point, you just lose the game on the spot if your opponent answers it with a Shantoto or something, and that's going to feel miserable.
To me, it just feels like a win more card, and win more cards in this game are considerably worse than win more cards in other games. Because if you're winning in this game, you're winning anyway. You don't really need a card that continues that, right? Because you're just going to do more points damage faster. But you don't need to do that necessarily. And also, we haven't even talked about the worst thing about the card, is that he's called Barts. The other Barts is just better. It's just the other Barts is really, really good. And the only time you'd even consider playing this Barts over Opus 1 Barts is when you're splashing wind instead of maining it as
Right.
your primary color. But I just can't think of many decks that want to play wind without having it as their primary color. So even then, I think what you said is something that I hadn't thought about him getting the other jobs so that he can be used in tribal decks. And I think that's where he'll shine. Just as another 3K that just goes into a tribal deck and is that tribe as well. A bit like Mime can do. So he might be good there, but if you're playing Wind, why are you not playing Barts anyway? The Opus 1 Barts.
Yeah. Can you think of another deck that, I mean, the Standard Units is the obvious one, but I don't think you can put it in Knights because, especially with Lightning Water, is where you want to be for Knights in the next set anyways. So that's kind of out already. Cheeky, I guess, in Cadets, but you're already jammed for spots in Cadets, so you don't have room for this. And like those are the two best spots for it that I can think of. So
yeah, and the weirdest part about the card is that if you're benefiting from the fact that he has every job and goes into a tribal deck, then you're not benefiting from the lots of jobs, are you? Because there's not going to be lots. It's bizarre. Maybe it'll be good. I doubt it. I like the art though, which is weird. It's probably from the same guy.
it is.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But he just feels odd to me. I wish he was a hero. And the next card that we're about to get, I wish that was the legendary. That would make more sense to me.
So we will we'll go ahead and get to that one. And I'll just let you follow in with that as well, since I know that you're a little bit more hyped for this card than I am.
Yeah, I love this card. Although I can't pronounce the name. Barbarisha, I'm going to say. I'm probably going to get killed on the comments for it, but that's what I'll go with. This reducing power is amazing. It always has been in this game. And it's so easy to ping for 1k, especially in Win now, that this is just amazing, this card. It's essentially a 2-for-1, because you're playing it to kill something, and you're getting a body as well. So just in War to Win, for instance, where this definitely has a home, you've got Balthier, which was already a staple in the deck. You've got Ishtola, which was already a staple in the deck.
Yeah.
You've got Valfor, which is already a staple in the deck. That's 9 cards anyway that this combos with. That's more than Al Cid had to combo with, and everyone played that. So, and
New Al Cid confirmed. There, you heard it here, folks.
it's what it feels like to me, though. It actually does. There's slightly more work and resources needed for it to work, but I think when it does work, it may be even better. It's also, you can just play it. You can just attack with one of, like, your Pain, for instance, which is free, or as a Zidane, which is basically free. Yes. Your opponent blocks with their 10k or 9k or 8k, and then you just play Barbarisha, and because they've taken the damage, then they'll die when their power gets reduced.
Yep.
So there's never a time when this card isn't good, really, to play. And now, because the main deck this is going to go into will be Water Wind, and there's Fan for it, so you can play it, kill something, next turn maybe attack with it, maybe block with it, but you can then play Fan for it, get rid of it, and play another one whenever you want. So it's not even that big a deal. It doesn't have an S ability.
Yep.
There's really nothing bad about it. And it's an Archfiend, and it looks amazing. Yeah, it will go in the Golbez deck as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
And yeah, I think Balthier is probably going to be one of the best cards in Wind at the moment because of how prevalent I expect Ice to be. The ability to untap itself will be really good, and it just combos really well with this. So I'm really, 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 really hyped for this card. And when I've play tested it, it's proven to be as good as it is.
And that's where our opinions do differ a little bit. And again, only because I haven't tested it yet, and especially Ishtola. Like, I am fine with Balthier. I'm just not sure that Ishtola is still in there. But again, to your point, Veilfor, automatically that's still in the deck, so that's fine. The thing that saves this card for me is, again, that to your point about Famfrit, is you're going to play this, you're going to kill something, you're playing Maria, so it's an AK, you can attack with it. If it trades, you're perfectly fine with that. you get to play another one then, or it's just killing something that you're more or less doing for free, because at that point you've gotten the value out of it. So anything that she either trades with or helps remove later on is just added value. So again, this card feels really weird that it's a rare and not a hero at a minimum, and I think it's just because it's a 7K and not an 8K, but again, that's fine because you're playing Maria, and 8K is, again, the sweet spot you want to be in. So I do like the card. I think it's also worth noting for the Archfiend deck, it's really cute that it gives you the S fodder that you need for the Opus II variant. Again, if you want to try to make that work, kudos to you. But I think that between the two of those options, it's just smarter to play this card instead. Be able to kill the thing that you care about, and then still progress your board at the same time. That's where I think this card is really going to be able to shine.
Yeah, good card is good. Play it.
Exactly. So a card that so now this one is one that I'm really not sold on, just because 3-drops are very important in Wind. Choose a forward you control other than Windrake, return it and Windrake to their owner's hands. So obviously this card is very, very good when you have a very strong enter the battlefield effect. Outside of that, I'm just not that interested in it. I think it's cute to be able, so to use the card that we just talked about, I think it's really cute to be able to reuse your Barbarisha cards, but I don't think that it's worth the card space, considering how tight you are for resources and how tight the forward lineup is already in that deck.
Yeah, it's also a huge tempo loss. Right. Because you're losing, at least 3 CP worth of forwards, probably about 7. It's cute, and it might be the sort of card that people play as a one-of and then just hold it up. If there's like a really efficient removal spell that people are playing that I haven't read in the spoilers yet, that people play that this counters, then great. I don't know. I want it to be good. I really do, but I don't think it is. If it didn't have to tap, so you could actually at least attack with it, but it does. Yeah, I think at best it's a one-off. It's a one-off to be able to protect something or replay something, but I think replaying something is far worse. You're much better off playing it with Time Mage, the new Time Mage. Right. If end of the battlefield is something you want to do. Yeah, if that's what you're going for, then that's much better. If simultaneously there's something you can ETB, so the best case scenario is if you have something like Barbarisha, which you want to ETB and you want to protect at the same time from a removal spell, great, but then is your opponent going to be stupid enough to play a removal spell into it when you have this up?
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not. So, gets a pass from me.
Yep. Unfortunately, Puff the Magic Dragon is not going to see a lot. That's all I can think about when I saw that card. Yeah. Then we have Geomancer, enters the field, deal 2,000 damage to all forwards your opponent controls. So again, we're back at this point where, and I like this one perhaps a little bit better than the forward Dancer, but then at the same point, Wind already has a Dancer backup that can just tap and deal 1,000. This is really cute if you want to combo it with maybe either a Veilfor to get a little bit more damage out of it. I don't really like that. Or if you're, again, going back to Opus II, you're playing Barbarisha, this plus that S effect can just board wipe your opponent. But again,
or just Opus 3 Barbarisha, yeah?
What's that?
Even just Opus 3 Barbarisha, yeah, it's just another ping effect that will kill it. And it's not even targeted, so they can't protect it. I think, yeah, it's fine. For what it does, when it's good, it will be really good. When it's not good, it will just be a 2-drop backup. But I think that if you're going to play this in a deck, there's going to be a really good use for it, and it will be a good card. Right. So it's definitely a card that I would advise you to think about if you're playing against a Wind deck that has, some kind of Barbarisha effect or something like that. I like it. It's kind of like the Dancer card, like you said, except a backup, and that's what you want it on. Right.
So we will see. This card still really bothers me. So back to the Aerith point. There could be a Earth Wind Final Fantasy VII something deck. And when people saw this card, they're like, man, it's so busted. You can play it for free. It becomes a 6K with Brave. No, like, I'm sorry. I'm not enticed by this card whatsoever. Earth Wind just hasn't been a good pairing in general. And maybe it is. Maybe there's enough cards where by some miracle we can make this happen. Of course, you have the Jesse tutor, so you can find either piece of these. I just don't think that it's going to be enough to say I am building a Final Fantasy VII Earth Wind deck. Because again, keeping in mind that you're going to want to run 3 Vincents, you're going to want to run at least 2 Yuffie to capitalize on that. You're going to have Jesse, and then it's like, well, what other Final Fantasy VII characters are there? Forwards, excuse me. But again, I think this card is wholly overrated by, and maybe it was just kind of the knee-jerk reaction when people saw it. Maybe people have moved away from it since, but this card gets a very hard pass from me.
I think you're missing the major point about it, is that you don't have to be playing Wind to play this card. You just need to be playing Earth.
Sure.
As long as you've got Vincent, then this card's free. I don't know how good that is, but every time I see this card, I'm reminded about what Alex said in our Final Fantasy group chat. The guy that won UK Nationals, he laughed and he said, the best Earth card in the game is a Wind card, and that's because you really do not have to play Wind to play this card because it's free to play. I wonder, it's kind of like playing a light card to play this in an Earth deck. Often it won't do anything, but when it does do something, it's quite good. But is it good enough? I'm not sure. To get a body that's not going to do much for you and give your Vincent Brave and like giving Vincent Brave in 1K is really good, but to hurt your deck's consistency to play this, I'm not sure. I like the idea, and I don't think there is a Wind Earth deck, but I also don't think it's meant to be in a Wind Earth deck. I tried it in an Ice Earth deck where I was playing Vincent, and I just put it in as a 2-of. But I don't think the effect is worth it. But I do really like the idea. I think it's cute, and I kind of hope there are more things like this in the game eventually.
Sure. And again, to your point, you're right. So then you could get Brave, you can attack and then use death penalty.
Oh.
But I go back to, so let's take it. Yes, again, so it is free. I get that, but I'd almost just rather pay for a 2-drop. We have Ursula now, which hopefully you're playing off Big Yang for free anyways. Maybe you're still playing the Baby Yang, which is a very easy 8K for 2 with Brave. Like, I just feel that there's better 2-drop cards you could be using. Again, I understand that it's free. It's just I don't think the card slot is just worth it in that case. Again, the best thing that you have is Jesse, so you can tutor up Vincent, so you can maybe more reliably have it then. But then this is just a 2-drop 5K that sits on the board and otherwise does nothing.
Yeah, so, it's going to chump block once, or never chump block because you really need Vincent to have Brave. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just the effect. I think the effect is really interesting, and I hope they bring back something like this again.
Yep, it'll be interesting.
Because it's the first card that's free, isn't it? Like, totally free.
Yes, because everything else says can't be reduced below 1.
Yeah. So that's why it's interesting to me.
Now, a card that I am way more excited for, and a common that I think just really, again, don't know how it's a common. I think that it's just absurd for everything that it does. And when I first read this, I thought it just activated your forwards. I'm like, you know, that's good enough. I'm okay with that. It's, you know, a barrel eye or no kind of on steroids. Yes, you have to pay for it, and you have to break it as well. But it gives you the ability to just swing out, leave 1 win card in your hand and this up, and then activate everything. And then I realized it says characters, so you can swing out, leave this up, have a card in your hand, untap all your backups and forwards, and then play a summon on top of it when your opponent tries to attack. And again, I very much feel that Ice in some form is going to be relevant in this next meta, and this card just shits on it, just to be blunt about it, just horribly shits on it.
Yeah, it's rough. As far as I'm concerned, there is only 1 legendary backup in Wind at the moment in Opus 3, and it's this card. It's really good. It goes in. It just goes in any deck, right? Because a 2-drop backup is fine. Sometimes a 2-drop backup that doesn't really do anything, you're okay doing that. But rarely, if you play this turn 1, there is rarely going to be a point where you're not going to use this effect in some way. Even if you've just got like 5 backups up and you just, instead of paying 4 for a summon, you pay 2 by discarding 1 card, then you tap all 4 of your backups. You know, there are so many ways this works, and rarely will the investment not be worth the effect. So if you're playing Wind, this card goes in the deck. And what's even better is Wind didn't really have that many really good 2-drop backups. And now this can just be a 3 of. I'm not sure if it'd be a 3 of, but because it's a common unit, it's fine. Yeah, because it's a common unit, you can play as many as you want. That's fine. I'm really excited about this new legendary card.
I'm gonna find a foil one. I'm gonna take a Sharpie. I'm gonna write an L on it, and then just post that in the group. And you are right. Again, I think
triggered.
It's just absurd how it's a common, and yet it's gonna have it's going to have a significant impact on the Windex period. You know,
yeah.
Depending on what the best version of it goes in, doesn't really matter because again, it just activates everything. So why not?
And most Windex, I was about to say any, but one day someone will look in a year and tell me I was wrong. But most Windex, they ramp out and they flood the board. That's what Wind does. So, you know, if this was an Ice, I wouldn't be too bothered. But this is Wind, where you're gonna activate a lot of things for almost nothing most of the time. You could just tap 2 backups and they're gonna activate anyway. So you're sacrificing a backup for a hugely powerful effect.
Yep, I absolutely love it. And again, the thing to note here, kind of with the Yuffie, you know, of course these are just our opinions. I'd love someone to prove me wrong on Yuffie in a number of ways, but there are some cards that I am just I don't think that either of us will be wrong about this card. I just don't see that being possible. Good card is really, really good. So moving on, then we have Chaos, Walker of the Wheel, and I think that's another card that we really split our opinion on. And what it really comes down to is understanding that this card has to be played with Heroic Yuna. I guess a step back from that. I will come back to that. This card could also potentially be very, very busted in the Wind Ice list, because this is another instance of where you can see your opponent's hand with Zidane. You're going to discard them down anyways. You're not going to have a lot of cards. Because they have to play a forward, so you could like play Zidane, take their last forward, play this for 3. They only have a summon or a backup in their hand. They don't get any value out of it, and you get a really premium removal card. So I'm going to look back into that now. I am curious to see how that's going to work out, if there's enough discard effects. So interesting note there. Going back to it, I think the number one place that a lot of people are going to see this card is going to be in Wind Water. And I so badly want this to be good in Wind Water. Because Heroic Yuna, it hits a little bit of what else is out there. Again, I don't think Golbez is really going to stick around as much anymore. But the biggest downside about this card is the 2 things. One, it has to rely on another card for very specific situations, which is always bad. But more importantly, it has to rely on a card named Yuna. And I really wish that wasn't the case, because 2-drop rare Yuna is still probably one of the best water backups. Probably still the best water backup. Okay, I'd have to look before I make that bold of a statement. The card's damn good. And when we consider things like Famfrit out of the next set as well, when we talk about that in water, making that card a 2-drop is just absurd. There's no other way to say it. I think the value that you're getting of making Famfrit a 2-drop versus this comboing with Heroic Yuna, I think the 2-drop Yuna is just better. I really want to see this work. Please, Japan, come through for me on this card, because I know if it's anyone, it's going to be Japan that creates some really wacky lists with this. But even then, I think it's going to be Wind Ice now that I mention it. So,
I really want Wind Ice to be a thing. And after this video, I'm definitely going to have to go and have a look if it can be a thing. I think there's probably some lists where it's like mainly Ice, and you're splashing Wind for things like Dorgan and Barbarisha, because there's quite a lot of really good ping effects in Ice. And then you're playing this with both Zidanes and just loads of discard. I also think that I don't think it will be played in Water Wind because
not
even. I know I want it to as well, but the issue with Water Wind is that you really want it to be mostly wind forwards, mostly wind backups. Like you want at least 3 wind backups because that's the whole point of Barts, right?
Yep.
And then the way that you fill out your water slots is with summons. That's how it's always been. And like frankly, the water summons are just better than the wind summons anyway most of the time. So that's how the deck works. It runs the rare Una and at least 6 water summons. So not only are you taking away the fact that it's running the rare Una, not only are you taking away slots from water that it kind of sorely needs in the deck, you also just kind of being forced to playing a worse card. The best thing about her at Una is the fact that she's an EX burst, and rarely, if the matchup isn't worth it, you wouldn't bother playing it. But now, realistically, you're never going to play this card if they can play something scary from their hand, are you? That's just never. That's just bad. That's never going to happen. So, yeah, I think Wind Ice could be a thing. Maybe, hopefully, I'd like it to be. But in Wind Water, it's probably not going to be played. And even if I mean, how feel bad is this if you hit an EX burst and it's this, and you just think I can't do it. So, yeah, probably not played in Water Wind at least.
Yeah, womp womp.
It's a shame because it looks cool and it seems really good, but it's too bad. It's too bad of an effect on the downside.
Right, and again, just you have to. Again, now that I'm saying this, and I don't know why I didn't consider it previously, I think Wind Ice is going to be a really good spot for it, but because that just goes into the deck strategy already, versus in Wind Water you have to rely on what would be then 3 very specific cards to be in play, do the effect, and what have you. So it really bums me out. But for the last card, we have Rem, which again is just a solid card. It searches for a category type 0 for your break zone. So again, that could be the summons, it could be backups, what have you. I think this, again, it's an EX burst, it's great as well, and it helps you reuse special cadet effects when you really need them. So just all around a very solid card.
Yeah, there's not much to say. It goes in the cadet deck. It doesn't go in anything else. That's about it. It's fine.
Yep, and it's a class 0 cadet. Yay! So
yeah, yay! That's a good thing. We don't have enough backups that say that.
I think there's like the 3 of them, right? Because there's there's
yeah, I think there's 3 in total,
and then Deuce. I think the only 3.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's no lightning ones. At least one lightning one. But right, I think they were probably making quite a conscious effort not to make Class 02 broken.
Right. That is a very hard thing to balance because it gets to a point where the momentum is just strong enough where it's like, all right, I have this many cadets. Good luck getting back from it.
Kill something every time it attacks. Yep. Yeah.
All right, and with that, we have kind of our top picks, one of each rarity, with Legend being just kind of a feel bad. Aerith, Hero is Dorgan. Again, I think we both agree that it's just going to be, I mean, certainly one of the most played cards from this set in the sense it goes in a very wide variety of win-based decks. It might not make the most in terms of numbers of copies that are in top 8 decks, but I think it will maybe reach a higher threshold of at least being a one of in every element that has wind in it as well.
Yeah, it's just that the other really good cards in hero slots are Trey and Zidane, but they're far more situational. Whereas Dorgan, he's just going to go in things. He's just anything that plays wind is going to want to play it, really, at least as a one-off.
Right.
I will note that the legendary slot, in my mind, is taken up by Oracle. But we'll move on from that.
So speaking of Oracle, certainly gets the common slot, and then Barbarisha gets the rare slot for obvious reasons on both these cards. Probably just are, again, I can almost bet we're going to see more copies of these 2 cards that conversely we'll see of the legendary and hero cards that we had mentioned. So with that, Jamie, any last thoughts on your picks from the Wind of Opus 3?
No, I think we've spoken about all the cards I'm excited about enough. Wind has definitely been buffed. And, we made a video 2 weeks ago saying that Wind Water was the best deck in Opus 2. Is it also going to be the best deck in Opus 3? Maybe, quite possibly. But I think the best thing about wind now is that it's playable in other elements with other elements. Right. You don't have to match it with water. It can be done. It probably can only be done with fire and lightning and maybe ice. But that's good. That's definitely an upgrade because wind was sorely lacking in its choices to be played.
Right. I certainly think that's the best boost that it's given. Just the flexibility that it's going to go in more elements. I think we're certainly going to see. I hope we're going to see something besides wind water pick up. But to that point, again, wind water was already so strong. It only got, I mean, it got significantly better. Even I won't even try to play that down. Like it got some really important cards for it. And I do like the fact that. And again, this is probably just being a bit cheeky, and I do love the idea that we have a budget deck in the game. But it also did help out standard units quite a bit as well. Again, I'm not saying that's going to top 8 at nationals or anything, but it's still something that someone can take to their locals for. I mean, the deck's got to be like under $50. Like it's dirt. It doesn't play any legendaries. It's dirt cheap. And someone can take that to their locals and have a lot of fun with it. And I think that's an important step that we need to realize about getting more people into the game, increasing the exposure. And tribal decks just do have, or themed decks for people who aren't familiar with Magic terms, tribal decks do have a good kind of this feel-good moment to them where it helps people get into the game as well, because they like to float around these one strategies, or they like to float around these themes. Again, Archfiends could be another very possible deck for that, but it's one, going to be more expensive, and two, it's a lot harder to play. At least I'd imagine, because you are playing 5 colors at that point. 6? No, I think you would just not play the last element, what have you. So I really like to see what this is going to bring into the meta.
Yeah.
But
happy with wind.
Absolutely. But with that, video ran a bit long again, so it's always, again, thank you so much, Jamie, for having the time to go through this with me. I hate doing these by myself, and it certainly helps have a little bit more discussion. If you guys like this video, please make sure to drop us a like, comment down below what your favorite Opus 3 wind-based card is, and of course, always subscribe for future Final Fantasy trading card game content. So on behalf of myself and Jamie, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming video. Have a good one. This video made possible by the patron support of viewers such as yourself. Thank you to our honorary sages.